Cottage Street, Camden.
Good evening, everybody. I just wanted to do a quick overview on the Cottage Street Bridge for you all before we get started. I also wanted to mention that Andrea Lacasse from Ty & Bond, our structural engineer, and Gordon Leedy, our landscape architect, are here to answer any technical questions if you have any. And I'll just real quickly recap here. The Cottage Street Bridge is a town-owned bridge. It has a 142-foot span. It was built in the 1930s, rebuilt in 1961, and it was closed in December of 2018 by Mass DOT. 7 months prior, in May of 2018, we received a $5 million grant from Mass DOT as part of its TIP, or Transportation Improvement Program. It's expected that that will replace the entire bridge. It's still 5 years out at this time, plus a year of construction, so we're still looking at 6 years. In the meantime, we wanted to have this neighborhood meeting to get feedback from you to find out how we can improve the neighborhood in the meantime. So some examples that I'm thinking off the top of my head anyway are planters, benches, reopening walkways for pedestrians, for bicycles, possibly removing the Jersey barriers, the fencing, signage, things like that, just to make it look a little nicer for your neighborhood. So I guess at this point we'll open it up to you, and if you have any technical questions, we'll pass them off to Andrea and Gordon.
May I ask a question?
Of course.
My memory is that we were told at the time it would take, for $400,000 or so, we could do temporary repairs that would get us until it was replaced. And the decision was that was a lot of money for temporary repairs that would then, is that right? I mean,
yeah, and I'll lean on Andrea to back me up on this, but when I spoke to Sean earlier today, he said he was thinking that repairs were in the $500,000 to $750,000 range. That may be on the high side, I'm not sure. But the risk in repairs at this point is that if we repair the bridge, it may fall off the TIP list.
Okay.
So we just need to keep that in mind.
Questions, comments? Just come up to the microphone.
I'm not going to bend down.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
That's just for the recording.
Yeah.
Bernie Drew, 24 Gilmore Avenue since 1978. I have two items to comment on, starting with the bridge. I'll state the obvious. Yes, it is an inconvenience to the neighborhood. But beyond that, I think there's a much broader issue. The town of Great Barrington has 6 bridges over the Housatonic River. 2 have been repaired in recent years. 2 are closed, and that pushes, and there's one near Brookside which probably takes the least traffic of them all. That pushes an awful lot of activity onto the Brown Bridge, which, as each day you drive by, you wonder how many more spindles are going to fall off the railing, which leads one to wonder why so close to closing is the town told these bridges are in sad shape. I mean, are we going to be told in 3 months that the Brown Bridge has to close? And the Brown Bridge particularly is not amenable to the type of repair work that happened on Bridge Street or in Housatonic Village, where you work half a lane at a time. As it is today with the Brown Bridge active, the traffic backs up beyond Belcher Square at times, and in the other direction backs up on Main Street. So I'm just standing to urge you to really consider repairing Cottage Street Bridge as quickly as possible in anticipation of the Brown Bridge failing at this point. It's of a like age to the other bridges that have been causing problems. Second issue, since we're in the neighborhood, Gilmore Avenue sort of has sidewalks. When we first moved there, Dewey School was open, And of course, the sidewalks were all used by children. These days, well, the town, when it first acquired what we fondly called the banana snowplow, sidewalk snowplow, the sidewalk was cleared. As time went on, that effort stopped. I was told that, well, they had a new sidewalk plow and it was wider and they couldn't get around the trees on the sidewalk, which are one of that sidewalk's issues. But the concrete has not been touched in the time that I've lived on Gilmore Avenue. The slabs are ruptured somewhere like this and this, and you know, we walk the sidewalk as often as possible and have memorized where the worst cracks and crevices are. There are probably 3 troublesome trees along the sidewalk that have grown out, and I've been told, you know, I brought this up with previous highway superintendents, and so, well, one even said, you know, that the town had a lot of sidewalks to take care of, and it would take care of each one of them, you know, over a 10-year span, it would come around again. Each one, well, it's been 40 years and it's never been touched. There aren't as many children on the street, but there are a lot of us older folks. There's a courthouse on the street. People walk to the courthouse. People drive to the courthouse. And like just about a third of the other streets in town has heavy traffic. For lots of reasons at the moment, the reason there's heavier traffic is the new light installed at Elm Street. And people are trying to avoid waits on the Brown Bridge. So I would urge you to look into adding Gilmore Avenue to the list of to-do sidewalks when you can. The sod is creeping in slowly. It's about a foot on each side now, so it's like a cow laying down the middle. Thank you.
That's right. So I'll address both issues. Just the bridge on the Red Bridge, the Brown Bridge, whichever color you want to call it, is owned by the state. And I share your concerns that they will wait until the bridge fails before they start repairing or replacing it. So that's something we are working with state officials to hope that we can move that process forward. The sidewalks, Sean isn't here, but do you want to address that?
Sure, can I just add one
Yes.
to your Brown Bridge comment? Repairs to the Brown Bridge will be beginning this spring. We have been notified by Mass DOT that they'll be doing steel work there, and they've also reached out to us because part of their repairs will include a new paint job for the bridge. So we're in the process of choosing the color right now as well.
What color to paint the Brown Bridge?
Can we go back to the green bridge?
Back to green. I used up my time, but you know,
we have plenty of time. They posted next meeting 7:30, so
experience told us when they started working on the Housatonic Bridge and one of the beams fell in the water that you can be surprised when you do a bridge project. I didn't say earlier that, yes, the Bridge Street Bridge is functioning, but we, as you're well aware, large tractor-trailer trucks have an awful time if they can even make the corner at the top of Bridge and East Street. The turn at Cottage Street is wonderful, but things could be done there if it needed to be brought back into service.
And as far as the sidewalks concerned, Sean's not here, but we will.
Sean's not here, but I will tell you this. When I first started here in town, I drove around with Sean to look at some of his priorities. He specifically drove me down Gilmore and pointed out the sidewalks and the issues there. So I know it's on his radar. I don't know specifically when he's planning to replace those, but I can look into it and find out for you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Who else would like to speak? Go right ahead.
I'm Martha Clay, 30 years on Easton Cottage, 1 year on Gilmore Avenue. My mother and I have a suggestion on how we can come up with the revenue for the repair of the Cottage Street Bridge, because as Bernie just eloquently pointed out, we need to make sure we have some functional bridges. We have a marijuana store in Great Barrington that in the first half of this year generated $500,000 in tax revenue. We think in the neighborhood that $500,000 should comfortably cover the repairs of the Cottage Street Bridge. And that's what we would like to suggest that revenue get put forward for.
Thank you. When it gets to budget time, we'll keep that in mind.
Thank you.
Do we have an assessment from the
Just
state?
go to the microphone. State your name, please.
Richard Combs, Grove Street, Housatonic, Barrington, and all over. But you talked about the Brown Bridge and the state's gonna start doing some work. Do we have an assessment from them as to the condition of that bridge, and are the repairs they're planning on making long-lasting?
That's a good question. I don't have that information tonight, but I, again, can look into that and check in with Sean and get back to you.
Hi, Liz Hirsch, Easton Cottage, and also a member of the Parks Commission. I share the concerns about if we have problems with the brown-red bridge, then what traffic that will bring onto East Street and cutting through the neighborhood there. Cottage Street, I walk on it every day with a stroller, so as long as it's safe to do that, I'll keep doing that. And it's really not a major inconvenience to have that as not a driving access into the neighborhood, but I do really worry about what will happen with the traffic already on a street where people are zipping through constantly. It's not a new problem if we have any closure on that bigger and more central bridge. And I also love the idea of planters and benches. It'd be great.
Thank you.
Andrea?
Andrew?
Do you want to just touch on the bridge and any information you have to provide to me?
Sure. So I've provided this drawing here, which may be hard for you to see. I recognize that the line weight is pretty light, but after reviewing the Mass DOT load rating and inspection reports, these areas that are hatched right here, these are the elements that they've rated as 0 that have been deteriorated, and they consider to no longer have structural capacity for carrying vehicular loads. So our role as of right now, our contract with Great Barrington was to just look at the bridge and suggest a live load rating. So, you know, if you were to reuse it for a park area, recreational area, and for pedestrian loading, you know, we're thinking a safe live load right now would be about 50 pounds per square foot. And so for pedestrian use, that's sort of, you know, like a bridge of flowers, casually people wandering around. It's not, you know, if you're thinking like 150 pounds per square foot, that's like starting the New York Marathon. People are really congested in this tight space and ready to go. So you could comfortably reuse this bridge for recreational purposes, but you can see these two hatched areas right here where these structural elements are rated 0. They don't want vehicular traffic on the bridge. So when we were talking about repairing the bridge, these are the locations that would receive repairs or cribbing. So, you know, our role going forward could be to evaluate aesthetic options that you could do with the bridge. And we have Gordon here, who's a landscape architect, who can talk about what those possibilities could be if anyone has any suggestions or questions about that.
I have a brief question. What
Hi.
is that?
Speak up, Bill.
This is a north arrow right here, and this is the East Street direction.
Okay.
That's the
That's
main
what I
street
want.
direction, and the flow goes this way.
Hi, my name is Pat White. I live on Russell Street. I've also lived on East Street. And I'm sorry, but making the bridge pretty for 4 or 5 years doesn't do us any good. Yes, the fire station's on our side, no problem. We need an ambulance. You try and get someone in a hurry into our neighborhood. It's not easy. You try to go out East Street. If you want to go into town, you have to turn right, turn around at the fire station, because with the way the bridge is, you can't see what's coming the other way. 1 or 2 years is bad enough. 6 years, you're putting a whole neighborhood in jeopardy. And all these pretty planners aren't going to get us anything.
Thanks, man. Miranda.
I'm Nancy Cicchetti, and I own a house in Avery Lane. I agree with this woman. Trying to come out, I can barely come out of my street, Avery Lane, which is going onto Route 7. It's very hectic. I've almost been in accidents. I can't see. And I also feel that what's taking so long, you're telling us 6 years that we can't use Cottage. A lot of times I have to go right when I really want to go left or go straight, and then I would cut through Cottage Street because I have a house up on Quarry, and I can't get there. I have to go all the way around. But what is the problem that you're telling us 6 years? I just don't understand. I just don't think that's fair or reasonable.
Mark, you want to explain that?
Sure. So the 6-year timeline is based on available funding from the state. This is state funding for a town-owned bridge. So we're in line with other communities, and unfortunately, if we do repairs, which I touched on earlier, if we do repairs in the neighborhood of $500,000 to $750,000, we could reopen the bridge temporarily. But again, we risk falling off the TIP program at that point, which puts the $5 million burden back on the taxpayers.
See, the bridge was already on this list before it was closed. It wasn't, so we knew we were in line in 2023 to get the funding. What we didn't know was that the state was gonna close it.
Well, can you use the pot funding, the pot money, and then, you
The
know,
pot,
take it?
no, the
You
pot
can't-
money, we can use it, yes, to do repairs, but again, and we won't be able to use that until budget time and for next fiscal year. But if we do that, we do run the risk, and I'm not saying we won't do it, of not getting the $5 million, and then the town would be on the hook for the whole repairs.
I see. And how much would it cost to make the bridge look pretty?
I mean, you're talking about if you were to do benches and planters and so forth. I mean, I think it would be less than, much less than $100,000, much less.
And we haven't committed to that yet.
Yeah.
This is just
I
an
don't,
idea that's
personally,
coming.
I don't think that's necessary. I walk that neighborhood all the time with my dog. I think Gilmore needs better sidewalks, because I walk there too, and I've almost tripped over the trees.
Yeah, no, we haven't committed to that at all.
That's
This-
good,
yeah.
because if you're gonna try to fix the bridge
Right.
as soon as possible.
Hi, Karen Lindstrom, 40 Everett Street, and I'm in the minority here. I say take as long as you need, because Everett Street has become so much safer with the bridge closed. Cars go tearing down Everett Street, and while it is a pain in the neck having to go around the other way, I really like not having to worry about walking across my street to get to my car, or having my cat get run over, or any of that type of thing. So I was wondering when the bridge gets opened up again, can we get speed bumps or something like that on the street, on Everett Street? Because it's a really convenient cut from East Street to Cottage Street, and people use it a lot. I mean, I was really surprised how quiet my street got when the bridge got closed. And I'm actually really enjoying it, but you know, I wish that would be something that the town would think about or look into when the bridge is back open, because up the street a little bit, there are a few children, and there's some older people on Everett Street, and you know, it's just dodging cars is not up there on my list of things
Everett's
to do.
immediate left after you've crossed the bridge?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So traffic calming is, at this point, always on our minds when we're redoing the streets.
Yeah.
So.
And I mean, one of the things too, one of the biggest culprits of speeding down that street are the trucks from the town garage. So
Definitely.
That's easy to fix.
that's a big problem. And I mean, it's a little bit of a bummer that our Everett Street is not quite as well plowed now that the bridge is closed,
It's
but.
plowed before Russell.
Pardon?
Everett gets plowed before Russell.
Yeah, especially when it's open, but I think we're all in the same boat. Last winter, it was, we were much slower to get plowed, but, you know, I mean, that hasn't been a problem, but when the bridge is opened, it'll start to be a problem again, so.
So we will put that on the list. It's
Yeah.
good to
Thank you.
Anyone else? Right ahead.
Linda Lavoy, 49 Russell Street, since 1972. First of all, why is a bridge in such poor repair? Why weren't repairs made before it got to this point? And I think that we should at least try and open part of it so that we have some way of getting onto Main Street without having to go completely around town for us to get through town.
Thank
Address the one lane.
you.
Andrea, could you address the one lane issue?
Well, certainly if the town wanted to.
Can you talk a little louder or come to the mic?
Just reach. You got it.
It's not.
Hello. Certainly if the town wanted to investigate reopening a lane on the bridge, that could be looked into. I'm not familiar enough with opening just half a lane to comment on how much that would cost and how long that would take, but if that was the town's priority, that could certainly be investigated.
So we'll see what that would cost us too. Anyone else? Yeah, come on up.
Michelle LeBaire, 70 Division Street, and for years and years I lived on Lower Cottage Street, and then I moved up to Upper Cottage Street, so I'm real familiar with the area. But 23 years ago, my daughter's 25 now. When she was about 2, we always used to walk in Great Barrington. We didn't even drive our cars on weekends. That was the whole point of living in town, the walkability. The sidewalks on Gilmore Avenue were terrible 23 years ago. As a matter of fact, my little girl, my husband and I, we were walking, our daughter was in front of us, and one of the sidewalks where, you know, the concrete was up, fell, hit her mouth, blood everywhere. We had a nurse living in the neighborhood who rushed out, checked our daughter and everything. Our daughter, as little ones do, the blood looks a lot worse than what the actual thing is. But that was 23 years ago. My husband and I generally will come into town, we'll park at the courthouse, and we'll walk in Great Barrington, go up on the hill and the lake and that sort of thing. And, you know, my husband just shakes his head, and he said, these are as bad as it was when we lived here. And so I would, and even though I don't live there now, I have only fond memories, and I know a lot of the people who are sitting in this room right now, they used to be my neighbors. So I would really like to see priority given to Gilmore Avenue before somebody does get hurt seriously. And like I said, it's a shame because it's such a nice walkable area, because the sidewalks on East Street are very good, and the surrounding areas are pretty good, but for some reason that one strip is not ever either. So, they need to be looked at before a kid gets hurt, or a senior citizen, or anybody. Okay? All right, thank you.
Anyone else? So we will get back to everyone. Oh, go ahead.
Get to go again?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. So there's one more big thing about the neighborhood, and that has to do with the noise of the traffic. It's not the volume of the traffic, it's the noise of the traffic. And the biggest culprit are trucks. There's actual signage up that says no vehicle over a certain tonnage is allowed on East Street. That's never been enforced. We have 18-wheel trucks coming down Hillside, down Cottage, and turning onto East Street. And those vehicles regularly get stuck, and the neighbors have to come out with the police officers and direct these 18-wheel trucks to navigate, because their GPS is telling them to come into our neighborhood to avoid Main Street traffic. We're a neighborhood. We don't need 18-wheel trucks coming into our neighborhood. we would strongly ask all of you to enforce the current signage that no vehicle over a certain tonnage is allowed. That would also include a lot of trucks that are just hauling things like lawnmower equipment. It's noisy, it's incredibly noisy in the neighborhood because of the truck traffic. It's bad enough that we have automobile traffic. We would like you to calm down the noise from the truck traffic. Enforce the current signage. Ask our police officers to start actively ticketing any truck, any vehicle over the allowed tonnage traffic. That's what we are asking you to do. Just enforce the signage that has been up for decades. Ask our officers to please do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just had a question about speed bumps. I should really educate myself more about speed bumps. But is that a deterrent for 18-wheelers? And is that something that they try to avoid, or is that something we can look at?
Use a microphone.
Oh, sure. I'm sorry. Yes, I was just curious about speed bumps. If that's a deterrent for 18-wheelers, is that something that could be talked about for East Street?
I'm sure it would be a deterrent, but in New England, it's next to
They
impossible.
do it in Stockbridge. Stockbridge has speed bumps. It's not a deterrent.
Removable speed bumps?
That's right, removable speed bumps, yes. They have
It's
them in
something we'd have to
Stockbridge.
talk to Sean about.
We'd like them on the street.
The other thing is there are other ways of doing things that are not speed bumps per se, because I agree that, it just is it's a maintenance nightmare, and it's really hard in the winter to keep those in
Remove
place.
them in the winter, that's what Stockbridge
But
does.
there are, like, if you go to, one option is to examine using speed tables, which are wider, they're wider areas that are raised to like curb level, right? So they do it, they adopted a big program in Cambridge, if you've been there. I'm not suggesting that that's the answer, but it is one of the kind of arrows in the quiver. So if you look at traffic calming, there are a number of ways that you can discourage large vehicles. There are a number of ways that you can accomplish what, in like a parking lot, you might use speed bumps for that are maintainable and are suitable for traffic. So the answer is that there are many ways to solve this problem, and what I heard was that we'll take a look at that
Yes.
as an overall program.
Yeah, we will definitely take a look at this. Anyone else? Pat, come on.
Just one more question. Is there any way, or is the town planning on doing some kind of a traffic study on East Street? I was on it at 3 o'clock today. There were 7 cars going this way, and I don't know how many cars going this way. With the bridge closed, the traffic on East Street is unreal.
What would the purpose of the study be then? We know there's a lot of traffic.
Well, I don't know. Find some way, use that as an incentive to do something with the bridge. It's getting to the point where you try and come out of Everett Street, and you have to sit there and wait for car after car after car.
We'll look into it. But, if we can figure out a reason to do it, we will gladly do it. Anyone else? So there will be a report that comes out with these ideas, and once Mark meets with Sean and Ty and Bond, and we will continue this discussion. Do you have anything else you want to add?
No, that's it.
Okay. Select board, anything you want to add? Okay, so we have a few minutes before the way the agenda was put up, Grove Street will not be till 7:30. So enjoy your company, and we'll be back in a little while.